She couldn't have forced herself to do it slowly. The armor suit slammed at a slant into a piled, writhing, burning hardness of plasmoid bodies, bounced upward. She went over and over, yanking down all the way on the flight controls. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, the suit hung poised a little above black, uneven flooring, turned back half toward the entrance mouth. A black ceiling was less than 20 feet above her head. The plasmoids were there. The suit's light beams played over the massed moving ranks, squat bodies and sinuous ones, immensities that scraped the ceiling, stalked limbs and gaping nutcracker jaws, blurs of motion her eyes couldn't step down to define into shapes. Some still blazed with their guns' white fire. The closest were 30 feet away. They stayed there. They didn't come any closer. She swung the suit slowly away from the entrance. The ring was closed all about her, but it wasn't tightening. Repulsive had thought he could do it. She asked in her mind, "Which way?" She got a feeling of direction, turned the suit a little more and started it gliding forward. The ranks ahead didn't give way, but they went down. Those that could go down. Some weren't built for it. The suit bumped up gently against one huge bulk, and a 6-inch pale blue eye looked at her for a moment as she went circling around it. Eyes for what? Somebody in the back of her mind wondered briefly. She glanced into the suit's rear view screen and saw that the ones who had gone down were getting up again, mixed with the ones who came crowding after her. 30 feet away. Repulsive was doing it. So far, there weren't any guns. If they hit guns, that would be her job and the suit's. The king plasmoid should be regretting by now that it had wasted its experimental human material. Though it mightn't have been really wasted, it might be incorporated in the stuff that came crowding after her and kept going down ahead. Black ceiling, black floor seemed to stretch on endlessly. She kept the suit moving slowly along. At last the beams picked up low walls ahead, converging at the point toward which the suit was gliding. At the point of convergence, there seemed to be a narrow passage. Plasmoid bodies were wedged into it. The suit pulled them out one by one, its steel grippers clamping down upon things no softer than itself. But it had power to work with, and they didn't at the moment. Behind the ones it pulled out, there were presently glimpses of the swiftly weaving motion of giant red worm shapes sealing up the passage. After a while, they stopped weaving each time the suit returned and started again as it withdrew, dragging out another plasmoid body. Then the suit went gliding over a stilled tangle of red worm bodies, and there was the sealed end of the passage. The stuff was still soft. The guns blazed, bit into it, ate it away, their brilliance washing back over the suit. The ceiling gave way before the suit did. They went through and came out into... She didn't know what they had come out into. It was like a fog of darkness, growing thicker as they went sliding forward. The light beams seemed to be dimming. Then they quietly went out as if they'd switched themselves off. In blackness, she fingered the light controls and knew they weren't switched off. "Repulsive!" she cried in her mind. Repulsive couldn't help with the blackness. She got the feeling of direction. The blackness seemed to be soaking behind her eyes. She held the speed throttle steady and fingers slippery with sweat, and that was the only way she could tell they were still moving forward. After a while, they bumped gently against something that had to be a wall, it was so big, though at first she wasn't sure it was a wall. They moved along it for a time, then came to the end of it and were moving in the right direction again. They seemed to be in a passage now, a rather narrow one. They touched walls and ceiling from time to time. She thought they were moving downward. There was a picture in front of her. She realized suddenly that she had been watching it for some time, but it wasn't until this moment that she became really aware of it. The beast was big, strong and angry. It bellowed and screamed, shaking and covered with foam. She couldn't see it too clearly, but she had the impression of mad, staring eyes and a terrible lust to crush and destroy. But something was holding it. Something held it quietly and firmly for all its plunging. It reared once more now, a gross, lumbering hugeness, and came crashing down to its knees. Then it went over on its side. The suit's beams flashed on. Trigger squeezed her eyes tight shut, blinded by the light that flashed back from black walls all around. Then her fingers remembered the right drill and dimmed the lights. She opened her eyes again and stared for a long moment at the great gray mummy shape before one of the black walls. "Repulsive?" she asked in her mind. Repulsive didn't answer. The suit hung quietly in the huge black chamber. She didn't remember having stopped it. She turned it now slowly. There were 8 or 9 passages leading out of here, through walls, ceiling, floor. "Repulsive!" she cried plaintively. Silence. She glanced once more at the king plasmoid against the wall. It stayed silent too, and it was as if the two silences canceled each other out. She remembered the last feeling of moving downward and lifted the suit toward a passage that came in through the ceiling. She hung before it, considering. Far up and back in its darkness, a bright light suddenly blazed, vanished and blazed again. Something was coming down the passage, fast. Her hand started for the gun handle. Then it remembered another drill and flashed to the ship's communicator. A voice crashed in around her. "Trigger! Trigger! Trigger!" it sobbed. "Ape!" she screamed. "You aren't hurt?" End of chapter 28.